All aboard the Henry and Heidi podcast. Woo! Woo! It's the wow! Never saw that coming. It's the 13 out of Los Angeles to wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen, podcast fans. It's yet another installment of the aforementioned. Jeez, this is intense. Oh, okay.
Oh my God, it's making me a nervous wreck.
It sounds like it's leaving the station. Ding, 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 ding. So that's a sound effect we've never used before. And so let's see, Heidi, before anything, let's talk about the state of your feet. Can we talk about that for a minute? Yeah, let's do that.
No.
Yeah, we have to. We're driving back from eating food. Heidi said, I shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff, but I did it. And I said, what are we getting into here? And she said, you explain it. You maniac. God, you're Lucy. You're Lucy.
It wasn't on purpose, Henry.
Go ahead,
I didn't know that we were going to talk about this on the air.
Oh, no.
I don't know.
Baby soft feet.
What?
Baby soft. They're so soft now.
Listen to me.
Yeah. Because is there any kind of like foot judge you're trying to appeal to?
No, I read about these things, and it said if you want baby soft feet, and who doesn't,
Me.
you should try this.
Nope.
So I tried it.
And what is it exactly?
Well, I should have known when I unwrapped it and it smelled like the chemical plant that it probably wasn't a good idea.
So you're putting some chemicals on your feet. How do you apply it?
So it comes in these booties and it has some sort of acid in it, and you put these booties on, and it said to wear it between 90 minutes and I forget what else. So I thought,
Depending on how soft you want your feet.
and then it says that they'll exfoliate within 7 days. Okay?
Yeah.
So I do this, and I don't last the 90 minutes because
Why?
Because I literally could smell the cancer coming out of these booties. I mean, seriously, I was like, this is not good. And and I'm a health freak. So So I take them off and wash off my feet, and then lo and behold, yesterday in the shower, I was like, what is going on? Because it was been 4 days.
Yeah. Since you took a shower? Or?
No, since I put that on, but they started to exfoliate.
I like that you took me seriously. Go ahead.
And I'm not kidding you when I say the pads of my feet are gone. Sheets and sheets of skin, and not just like the light. I'm talking thick pieces. My feet hurt. They're raw. It's bloody in one point at one part. I was like, oh my God, I'm never doing that again.
No, I bet you're not.
It's just so bad.
But how soft are the feet?
I don't know, because they're still peeling. I'm afraid to take my shoes off. I am afraid to take my shoes off when I get home. I'm not kidding. It's just, why do I get myself into this stuff?
I don't know, Heidi.
Jeez. Can you cover your mouth? I felt that on my hand.
Okay.
Anyway, Henry.
Yes, ma'am.
Today, I thought we would talk about End of Silence.
Oh, the album?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So tell me where you guys recorded, where you were living.
Okay, well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
How much pre-roll do you want?
All of it.
Well, allow me to rewind the tape before we got into the studio.
Okay.
Because there is a story.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Those songs were the process of many months of Chris Haskett and I, the guitar player, a DC native like me, living on the drummer's mother's floor. Sim Kane's mom was just one of the nicer, more amazing people I've ever met. And so we were broke. and our resources were severely limited. There is no way we could have put Chris and I up somewhere like a hotel or a room. We just were really hand to mouthing it. And so Sim's mom allowed us to crash in her living room. So we'd watch TV or hang out, and everyone would go to bed. And we would just roll out our sleeping bags and sleep on the floor, Chris and I. And then bright and early in the morning, roll up our sleeping bags and stash them behind the couch. Go in and have breakfast in Sim's mom's kitchen. And using Sim's car. And we were just,
And this is in New Jersey.
This is in Trenton, New Jersey. We would drive to Andrew, the bass player's place, and go down to his cold basement, and we would practice. And it was just a really tough existence. We were just practicing in this like the winter of '90, and just like writing these songs, and the band, in order to talk about the End of Silence, I'm going to have to say some things that, you can call me out on. We were really good. I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but it is what it is. You have 4 young men in their late 20s, early 30s. So physically, everyone is just robust, just, really surging with life. And we're super aggressive, going after music. And you have this incredibly talented group of people. I'm the least talented amongst them. But you have, Chris, who's a really interesting guitar player, and this amazing rhythm section of Sim Cain and Andrew Weiss. And I've seen great rhythm sections, but these two really have a thing. I mean, you can't replace it. They're just amazing together and amazing separately, but together, forget it. And so you have this band building music with this insane rhythm section, where so many bands, they're missing the bass player, or they're missing a drummer. They got a great guitar player and a great drummer and a great singer, but they don't have the bass player. Without bass and drums in a rock band, I learned this in Black Flag. If you don't have that, doesn't matter what you put on top of it. Great singer, cool. But if you don't have bass and drums, you don't have it. And so we had it. And Andrew, you just look at Andrew. Andrew, you have a riff, and he just starts playing. And these riffs would come out of Andrew like frozen yogurt out of a frozen yogurt machine. It's just like, what tempo do you want? What chord do you want it in? I mean, he was just this endless flow of ideas, these mega riffs. And I'll never forget standing in this cold basement. I think we had like a kerosene heater down there. You could smell the kerosene. It was just tough. We're all in sweatshirts, and it's just, it is what it is. But you're young. And Andrew just started, this riff came out, and it was the song Low Self-Opinion. And immediately Sim and Chris just kind of jump in on it. That's how practices were. Sim would hit some kind of beat, or Andrew or someone would start riffing, and everyone would just pile on, as you do at a band practice. But with this lineup, it was just these massive grooves. And so band practice, as cold as the room was, the riffage was just so amazing, where the band would work themselves into a sweat just because of the sheer magnitude of the tunes. And so we start grooving on this, what became Low Self-Opinion. And I started writing the lyrics just right there, just saying these lyrics, and I just hit this thing and I'm not a melodic or tuneful person. I can't play an instrument. Melody doesn't come naturally. Nothing in music comes naturally to me at all. And there'd be day after day, these guys would make music, and I would just fall into it. Like, wow, you write music that even I can contribute to, which is rare. It's so difficult for me. But we were writing these tunes, and I was also writing. I had my walking to the store riff, which became the song Obscene. Really, it's a good song. And I'm not trying to say, hey, we're great. I'm just saying that we got that record right. And so we come up with this body of music in 89 and 90, and we made a demo, which eventually came out. We put out the End of Silence demos. We listened to this demo we made in like 4 hours of this music, and we sat there listening to it going, wow, this is really good. And it's easy to be in a band and like what you do. I think you should. I don't think you should write music and go like, wow, we're really awful. But it's deadly. It's dangerous to get too high on your own fumes. But we sat and listened to it and going, wow, this isn't so bad. And so that was kind of sort of the end of 1990. And in that we wrote those songs in and throughout, like winter 89 going into 90, spring and summer we're out playing. And then as we go into the later period of 1990, we're writing and recording and living at Sim's mom's and practicing at Andrew's, driving out to like the Jersey Shore to do a show just to bring in money to keep because I was paying Sim's mom rent. We'd come home from a gig and I would just give her like a wedge of money. She's like, no. I'm like, no, come on. We're using your hot water. Come on. This can't be fun to have us there. And so I'm just trying to keep everyone happy, keep everyone paid. And so fast forward to 1991, we're doing shows with Jane's Addiction. And it was such a great double bill because you would never want to go on after Jane's Addiction. They're just too.
No way.
Are you kidding? I mean, you'll never survive it. I can't even think of a band who should go on after Jane's Addiction. And so we were happily in the opening slot. That was appropriate. And at one point, their road manager brings me on the Jane's bus, and Perry and I get to talking about Lollapalooza. He's just explaining it as a concept that hadn't happened yet. And ultimately, we are on the Lollapalooza tour. And so we had every day to take those songs, the End of Silence songs, and play them live. And basically, they were like lumps of metal that through hammering them and putting them back in the fire and hammering them, we turned them into katana blades, into samurai swords. Perfectly sharp. Practiced, rehearsed every part of those songs that was not right, just like something evolving at a high rate of speed. Like the fifth leg fell off, the thing that wasn't necessary for the thing to survive on the Serengeti fell off. And so by late in 1991, Lollapalooza finishes. Everyone gets like 10 days off to go home and catch their breath. And then we reassemble on the East Coast and we go into a studio in New Jersey called the Show Place. And that was the beginning of the recording of End of Silence. So this is it was a culmination of things. We had been signed to Imago Records. It was a major label signing. Everyone in the band got a chunk of money for publishing. Like suddenly you've got $13,000, which is a lot of money, to anybody at any time. But for us, it's like we all had won the lottery. My lawyer, she said, I have this check, because she had gotten the monies from the record company. She goes, I have your check. I'm going to deposit it. But let me do something for you. Let me spend some of your money. I said, okay, what? She said, I'm going to deduct a year of rent, and I'm just going to deduct it, and we're going to give it to your landlord, just so for 1 year you are not thinking about rent. Because you know how it is when you're a renter and you're broke. By the 28th, you're looking for money, in trees. You're checking payphones. You're calling friends. You're begging your roommate. I mean, you're just trying to make it rain. And that weighed heavily upon me because I was always coming up short at the end of the month. And the idea of having 4 fiscal quarters of not having that sort of Damocles over my head. I'm like, Gail, thank you. Yeah, please do that. And it was such a great bit of relief. And so this is an inside story, but it merits telling. Pardon me, but I'm forgetting how Andy Wallace, who's mainly a mixer, like he works with a producer to mix an album, and he's mixed a million records. He's a good guy. He was tapped to produce the record and of The End of Silence. And I have no memory sitting here right now as to how we came to that conclusion. Like it's going to be him. Our initial idea was Teo, our sound man, because, he's in front of the band every day. Who knows that music better than Teo? And not only is he an amazing front of house guy who understands sound and how it all works together, he's a really good producer, and he produces all the time. I mean, it's not a new thing for him. And so the band, it turned into me versus the band, where the three versus me, with Teo being neutral, who, he just was like, hey, I'll produce, I'll help, I'll stay out of the way, like whatever you want. And so I think what I'm thinking is it was probably pressure from from management and the record company saying, we're going to bring in a big name, and since we've signed you, we get a big say in this, which is, who says? Well, they said. And I'm thinking it was a decision that was kind of, I was basically told, this is a good decision, just go with it and find a nice way to tell your band. And so it doesn't really help to name names, but Teo was, just go along, get along. He's being a good guy. But the other three, Chris, Andrew, and Sim, had varying degrees of dissent. And so we meet Andy, who's really, really cool. And perhaps compared to how we were, a bit of a conventional thinker. And maybe that's one of the reasons he was brought in, to kind of corral us. And so he said, okay, we're going to have a little pre-production. So we got into some practice room somewhere, and we played him all the songs. And he made some very wise, he proposed some really good ideas. He says, okay, that intro is like 16. Let's cut it down to 8. Try it with 8. We're like, okay, oh yeah, hey, that's a good idea. That bridge section is really, really long. If we made it half as long, the song is like 8.5 minutes. Can we bring it down? Because all of our songs are like, we don't think radio. We're not thinking, a band like us, come on. We're just thinking the music. And there's not one of those songs that's anything less than like 5.5 minutes. Like they're like these epics, because that's how we were writing them. And he goes, look, we need something kind of sort of in the pocket. Like I can edit. Like if there's a single on this record, and like your record company is going to demand one, so help me help you. And so with some of the more verse chorus type songs, like You Didn't Need, which is just verse chorus, lead, verse chorus, outro, whatever. It's less conceptual than other songs. We said, okay, so we made some pretty wise edit choices. Really normal, like chopping 16s down to 8 and a few 8s down to 4, whatever. And then he started kind of biting in on, like we have this like weird beginning for the song Obscene. It comes out of nothing, and it forms over like 2 minutes of sheer instrumental. This build, like a cloud that turns into a storm cloud and rains down, and then boom, the riff comes in, and it's a huge part of the song is the build. It's very artistic and super musical. We played that, and he went, well, what the hell is all that at the beginning? And I'm like, oh no, you just lost a third of the other three. Like one guy, I saw it. I was like, oh no, he's done with Andy Wallace.
Did he say anything to him?
No, I just, I know this guy's face. I heard about it later.
Right.
He crossed his arms. I was like, oh no, he did the arm cross. Anyway, so it becomes slightly contentious. Where he's
Can
like, well,
Andy feel it?
I don't know. And I'm not trying to put the guy down. He's in there to do a job. Mm-hmm. And it's probably not the first time he's gone in and said to a band, look, we're going to have to make some choices here. That's got to go. That's got to be shortened. A thing needs to go there. What the hell were you thinking about that? He's an editor, and he's got to come in and lay down the law. This is the new dog. establishing territory and limits. And my bandmates are really not the kind of people that you want to do that with. One of them in particular. Anyway, long story short, boom, we're in the studio. And so where were we? I have to think. I know we were near Rockaway. But as far as like the actual studio, I know it was called Showplace. I'll come up with where it was. Oh, it was in Dover, New Jersey. We were in Dover, and I think we were staying in a hotel in Rockaway. The studio is attached, like same building, shares like a door with a strip club that I believe Black Flag and Rollins Band had played in before, because there's a stage, but they also have strippers. And I think it was maybe Rollins Band. We loaded in there in the afternoon, like, some tough time of the year, and it's cold outside. And we open the door, and cold air is coming in, and there are these women dancing. It's like looking at that club the Sopranos had in the Sopranos show. It's just tough Jersey. And I shut that door. I'm like, oh man.
Oh no.
And so I think that's the place that we're playing next to. Anyway, strippers find out that there's a rock band playing, and some of them recognize the name, and they come over to visit because they know the engineer. And hey, these girls want to come and meet you guys. Okay, we're like, sure. And so
Henry, don't act like you were like, well, sure.
Well,
Please.
I've got a band who is second by second talking about mutinying on the producer. So we went in as a gray storm cloud ever darkening. So when there's like, hey, some girls want to meet, you're like, okay, that's nice. I'm juggling 8 chainsaws. Andy doesn't really see that. A lot of things he's wanting to do, sounds he's coming up with on the instruments. He's picking fights with people in the band. He's not trying to. We were a bunch of real contrarians. And so Andy, and it sounds like I'm just busting on Andy Wallace. I'm not. He's super competent and a really good guy. Just my bandmates and I were just wild animals. Anyway, he got into this groove where we'd come in at like 9 or 10 and work to about 5. And at dinner time's like, okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow. We're like, well,
wow, that's not how you work.
No. Now we're like, the juices are flowing. Here we go. He goes, well, and he said, well, I gotta, go pick up the carburetor at this garage and do, we're like, with all due respect, sir, I don't give a damn about your car or your errands. You're here we're the talent. And if we want to work till midnight, if that's how we're going to capture this song, then that's what we're doing in these like 10 days we can afford to be in this place. You're like, nope. And so he'd leave. And my band would just be like, what's that, man? And I'm having to defend this. And it's not defensible.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I don't know. So we would just keep playing. And so Teo would take over. And what resulted is literally hours of jams that you have never heard that exist on DAT. He'd make a mix, and they were straight to DAT, as you would do in those days. What an awful medium. We all fell for it. I mean, too bad we didn't have the money and just rolled real tape. Anyway, I have hours of these jams. And one of the things that came from those jams was a song that got used as a B-side called Lie, Lie, Lie. And there's like 4 versions of that. And there's all these weird jams these guys would get into with me, like talking over it or trying to yell or just come up, anything. And so we ended up recording when Andy wasn't there and doing a lot of overdubs. We just kept working. And it just became this thing where you're our 9 to 5 guy and we're just going to keep working. And so this separation between Andy and the band started forming because of this 9 to 5 thing that he established for himself. And all I'm telling you is the truth. And so we were living at this hotel, and sometimes I'd go in the morning, fresh voice, lay down a vocal, do like a song like Low Self-Opinion, like just go in there and hit it like 5 times. Rewind the tape, go, rewind the tape, go. Just hit it and hit it and hit it to get tons of vocals. And they can extract something usable out of that. I don't know. And so I would basically work with Teo, with Andy almost being the engineer. Like I would talk with Teo because he knew these songs.
Were you trying to freeze Andy out, kind of?
No, I just needed someone who would tell me, okay, that's the one. Because Teo had been listening to these songs.
Well, he knew you guys.
Yeah. And Andy's no jerk. Not remotely. He's not only competent, he's a really good guy. And he worked his ass off on this record.
Was there any tension between Teo and Andy?
No, they got along great. Just two
cool.
professionals who had big respect for each other. I mean, he saw how valuable Teo was to the overall, and he respected Teo as a sound engineer. And,
that's cool.
Yeah, and Andy's a good guy. It's just that my bandmates, a couple in particular, can be very difficult to get along with at the best of times. They're just very particular people. And I'm talking with all due respect because these are very talented, very hardworking people.
And they have their vision. They have their vision, and that's it.
Completely. Yeah. And these songs are as much theirs as they are mine.
Of course. I understand it.
Yeah, and everyone worked so hard. Anyway, we worked very quickly because we didn't need to. We'd done the pre-production, which was good, but we had been playing these songs for so many months. So I would do a vocal a day. And I still have my sheet of paper with all the songs with a line through as I was knocking them down, vocal after vocal. And suddenly we're done. And my days were spent when I wasn't at the studio. I would be back at the hotel watching the Anita Hill hearings, which was just fascinating. So I was watching that and then going in to do the work. And so we finished the record in New Jersey very, very quickly, and everyone went home. I went back to California, and Andy went out to California, and he was mixing the tracks down the road from where I lived.
Where?
Let's see. The name of the place he mixed at was a place called Ground Control Studios, and I'm not remembering exactly where it was, but I was living in Venice, and a couple of nights I got on my bike, I think, and I went there because he called me and said, hey, come in. I want you to listen to what I'm doing mixing wise, just to hear I want to hear what you think. I was like, oh, okay. And I sat and listened, and I really liked it. I was like, wow, this is like really just clean sounding and powerful, and we all sound great, and the songs are good. And, I was a young guy. This is going to be a good record. I was really excited because we were on a major label that seemed to be really behind us, and they ended up being very, very behind us, Imago. And they had heard rough mixes, like they had made visits, and they were totally into it. And so the label's like, yeah, this is great. And the band begrudgingly went, okay, well, it's okay. And I just sat and patiently listened to all the things they said. Well, I would have done that differently. I'm like, okay. Like, that sound on that overdub, or the way that guitar was comped, I don't like it. I'm like, okay. And I would agree. So I said, well, fellas, we got a record, got a label. It's going to be great. So prepare to smile. I was always that guy putting a smiley face on everything because they were pretty pissed. Anyway.
What were they really pissed about?
Just they didn't like a lot of the choices Andy made. And they thought he made a record that sounded too commercial. And when you listen to the End of Silence demos compared to the End of Silence, the album, you can really hear what they mean. And like when I listen to the End of Silence now, I hear a real 90s record. And beyond that, I hear a real Andy Wallace record. Like I know his work. I know him as a producer. I know him as a mixer. Like if you hear, I think Seasons in the Abyss by Slayer, you really hear what Andy did with Slayer, he really did with us. I mean, he kind of rubber stamped. He did
He
the
has a
Andy.
style.
Yes, he did the Andy Wallace thing
Yeah.
to both bands. Anyway, he comes out of the studio with these mixes that I got on a cassette, and I played him on my stereo at home, and I really liked him. But the thing that was most meaningful to me was I made a cassette of the finals in the order of the record, and I gave the cassette to Joe Cole, who was my roommate at the time, and he took it into his room. Da-dunk, the door closes.
I love that.
Through his, this mutant stereo system that I built for him out of I got some old speakers. I'll find some wire. I made him this completely, from 8 different old systems. I made him a workable stereo system, and I hear that record just blaring out of his room, and then he emerges at the end of all of it after listening alone, and he looked at me and he said, "You did it, Rollins.
Ah,
You did it."
I know that meant a lot to you.
That meant a lot to me because he was dead really soon after, and like within days. And so, the fact that he heard it means a lot to me. That he liked it, and he was not one. If he didn't like, he would have said, "Well, that's a fail." But he said, "You did it." Anyway, so soon after, like by February of '92, we're on tour. Rollins Band is opening for the Chili Peppers in Europe. Amazing tour. I mean, boy, they were so good, and we weren't so shabby either. And the album comes out, and we do a $4 video for our Low Self Opinion. It's just like a 1-day shoot. It's like no budget. It's fine. And suddenly their album is out. I think the first copy I saw was at the video shoot. Someone brought me a copy. I'm like, wow, okay. And it was a CD. Yeah, I have it in my hand. And then we get to Europe, and the record comes out, and I'm with BMG Germany. They took me out to dinner on my birthday, 2/13/92. I just turned 31. And I think I was on stage that night with the Chili Peppers, and they took me out for dinner afterwards. Happy birthday, they sang. And they said, "We are going to do really well with this record. Congratulations." I'd never heard that before. And this is BMG. This is a major distribution wing, of the record industry. I'm like, wow, okay. And that we played really well with the Chili Peppers and their audience. They didn't throw anything at our head. They obviously are there for the Chili Peppers. But we did this crazy tour that year. And
how long were you guys out on the road?
From February to November.
Wow.
Well, but that's what you do. I mean, if you're smart, I call it planting the flag on the moon, because it's a different kind of velocity that's behind you than when you're on an independent label, or at least in those days. Because there's no internet, there's no Facebook, there's no social media where you can kind of book your own tour and just tweet it and there you go. And so you have a hardworking, road hard band that loves to play every night, that's not lazy, that will get out there. And a record company with a huge wallop. And they love nothing more than a band that's going to play every night, do every interview, show up for everything. Then that's a band you can get behind because they're showing up to every interview. It's 8 a.m. I'm in some studio on 3 hours of sleep talking about the record because they said, "Can you do this interview?" I'm like, "Yeah." And on these tours, if there's a night off, I'm doing a talking show. I'm just out there, just really swinging as hard as I can, playing my guts out with the band every night, and then doing these talking shows. And we finally get to the end of the year, and it's Cypress Hill, Rollins Band, Beastie Boys from, I don't know, September-ish. You have to go online and find that. But it ended around Thanksgiving.
Was that a fun tour?
Yeah, the whole year was fun, but it was mixed in that the band is playing so well. I mean, they're just crushing it. They're just unstoppable. Again, young men in their late 20s, early 30s, this peak physical condition. On one magic tour after another, you start the year opening for the Chili Peppers. You go from that by having Tool opening for you. That's not going to last long. It's right before they made Undertow and took over the world.
Right.
But you've got this amazing opening band that's like eating your face every night. You have to go out after Tool, and every night they're getting better. Again, young men realizing their strengths. And by the 5th show of that tour, we're like, oh no, because they're so good. And by the 20th show, you're like, okay, I don't know what we're going to do. Wear asbestos clothing. I mean, they were so good. So anyway, you go from that to like great summer shows and this massive tour with the Beastie Boys on the Check Your Head tour for them. And they're doing What You Want every night, Pass the Mic. It's just amazing.
God, did you go out and watch them every night?
Oh, hell yeah. Are
Heck
you
yeah.
kidding? I'd warm up watching Cypress Hill, go play, quickly shower off, get dressed, and run back out to the stage. Never miss the Beastie Boys or Cypress Hill. I saw them, I don't know how many nights the tour was. Say it's like 45 shows. I saw them like 43 times.
Yeah.
Like, you'd never miss it.
No, that's 3 cool bands. That's a
are
good
you
tour.
kidding? It's a great bill. And I never saw the Beastie Boys do a bad show. And I never saw Cypress Hill do a bad show. They're just amazingly talented people. So you're surrounded by great bands. Why we were not the opening band in the middle slot, I don't know. Anyway, that tour comes to an end. And the part of it that was mixed, and I hate to go into it, but I have to. My friend Joe Cole was murdered on the 19th day of December of 1991. So the album is done, and we're super excited. Everything's going great. And then you're a witness to a murder. And it's just as awful, it's as awful as anything you can imagine. And then a few days later, go off to Australia and do promo.
How do you wrap your head around that?
You do the best you can and go to New York and do promo. When you're not doing promo, I was doing shows.
You never had time to grieve.
No. And it made me so mad. And I didn't understand what to do with that. Like, well, am I being selfish? I just wanted a moment just to go, I'm so sad. But between having to get the funeral together to go out and promote this record, and when I'm promoting the record, I'm working on behalf of me, of course, but Chris and Andrew and Sim and Teo and the management and the record company and. I mean, I can't, I just want to sit on a couch. I don't want to talk to anyone. No, shut up. Get out there and do it. You gotta. And of course I had to. And so I did. I just sucked it up and I did it. And a while later, I realized I had missed a window of a time to deal with stuff. And so with undealt with stuff, I went out and toured, and it's a really strange place to do photos, press, and shows from. You're coming from this corner that I had never been to before. I mean, you are really in a very bad place. And meanwhile, your record is going from strength to strength. Beavis and Butthead are talking about you, and there's like SoundScan in those days where you could watch your record sell. Like, it's like a wave. They go woo, and it goes back down again. And the record is doing great. It's like Tower Records Record of the Year, or in their top 5 or something. We're getting these strange accolades, and people are coming out to the shows. And it's, for a band, it was a great year. Everyone was paid in full. Finally, we're out of salary dilemmas. And we're getting great marks, and we're doing what's most important to us was like do good shows. And on stage live, forget it. We were just clobbering it. And then the tour comes to an end where it's late November, in the teens, somewhere mid-November, whenever Thanksgiving is. It's right around there. The tour ends in San Francisco, and the Beastie Boys bus was driving overnight, deadheading, they call it, back down to LA, I think, to drop off gear. So I asked someone in their outfit, like, hey, can I just jump in the bus with the crew and just catch a ride to LA? And they went, yeah, but we're dropping our crew off at the airport. So we'll drop you off at LAX. No problem. So me and some of the road crew, we just hopped in the Beastie Boys tour bus, went overnight, got let out at LAX. And I just remember leaving with like a backpack because I was in LA a few days before. I didn't need to bring much. And seeing Ray Charles with his Minder and the Ray Charles Orchestra leaving for something. I'm like, wow, there goes Ray Charles. And my tour's over. I got in a taxi and I went back to my apartment and I put my stuff down and go, okay, well, that's that. You know, this big record is like this big roar. And then it just kind of ends in an exhaustion and in sorrow. And that's, I went back to my little room and it just hit me that Joe is dead. The album is done. You know, that whole thing is over. We lost a band member. Andrew had, quit. No one wanted to be in the band with him anymore anyway. So if he didn't quit, he would have been fired. And so now we are missing someone. We don't have a bass player. And do we have a band?
Did he finish the tour?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That turned into a whole very contentious thing. But yeah, he finished the tour. I thank him for that. And suddenly you're out of a job. You don't really have a band, because you don't have a bass player. So we have to go find somebody. Like, how do you do that? I don't know. So we have to go climb that mountain. And you have no new material. So you're at the bottom of it. And oh yeah, your friend is dead. And you're alone in your little apartment. And it all hits you at once. The exhaustion, the sorrow, and the grief, the unattended, undealt with, the work you did not do to deal with this completely life-changing event. It hits you, because coming back from a tour is hard enough. I come back from tours these days, and it's really difficult. I mean, it's never been easy.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big up and a big down, and you just go from 80 miles an hour to like, have a seat. It's really difficult, and I'm getting better at it. But
it takes you a couple weeks to wind down.
Yeah, but that particular combination of things, me being at that age and all of that. So the End of Silence record, that's, it's as far as going through a lot to get to the studio. In my short career as a recording guy, there's only one other record I can compare it to that I made, would be My War by Black Flag, which was so intense. And that might be a topic for another time, because that was,
yeah, for sure,
a whole other kind of intensity / insanity. Just wild. And again, people writing, in a band that was really in the grip of something. Anyway, so The End of Silence, it's a record that holds up. And to this day, people come up to me and they'll either be old men or people like me, and they'll say, hey man, 30 years ago, that record got me through, or, I've played that record so many times, and that's cool. But it's really cool when a young person comes up and goes, hey, and they'll say, hey, I stole this record from my dad, or like my grandfather or whatever. And that's fine. But they'll say, hey, these songs really mean a lot to me. And, Low Self-Opinion, man, you wrote that song about me. I'm like, well, I wrote it for you, man, but you're going to be okay. And the fact that you made a record that means something to someone at all is amazing, but that years later still resonates.
That's got to be satisfying.
It feels good, because people make records for all kinds of reasons. I made records because they were in me and it had to come out of me. So I was kind of like getting the venom out of my body. But the fact that someone likes it, it's kind of a thing you don't plan on, because you can't plan on it. If you do, it's probably to the detriment of the music. The fact that someone does like it, and they like it years later, decades later, that it still has some resonance, or that young people in this new century find this to be a listen that does them some good or is a good asset, that to me is really rewarding because I didn't plan on that. It just happened. And someone once said to me, like, yeah, if you're lucky, if you're in a band, you write a few Beethoven fifths and it keeps you fed and it keeps you get a free beer and it keeps you in the mix. And I've had, luckily, I've had a few of those. I know people who have 80 of those, but I've had a few. And The End of Silence is one of them. And it's one of those things where we grew those songs out of the basement floor of Andrew's place and on the road and at sound checks. And those songs earned their place they justify their existence from being just hammered out live on stage with gallons of sweat and devotion and intensity and perseverance. And never ever again did I have the time to take songs out for a year and wail on them with a hammer and find out what's wrong with them and take them already road hardened and then go record them. And that we kind of did with the Lifetime record with a shorter time of evolution, but we took the End of Silence songs out for well over 100 shows and just brutalized them and made them have to defend themselves, and anything that couldn't stick, fell off. And never again did I ever have that kind of time. It's like write, record, tour. That my life turned into write. I never use a lyric sheet in the studio, but I became very prolific to where I came close. I never wanted to be the guy with a sheet of paper looking at something. I like having a microphone in my hand and a pair of headphones literally tied to my head so they don't fly off. And I do a vocal, and I just pretend I'm live, and I just go off. The sweat flies everywhere, and I use a handheld Shure 58, and it's it's in the moment. And I've never not recorded that way, but I never had a recording process, a songwriting and recording process like The End of Silence. That never happened again, not even with Wait, which was an airless, windowless practice environment, which that's also a good story, but just a whole other, just a different, we didn't have nearly the amount of shows to build those songs up. We're talking 5 or 10 shows instead of 150.
Right.
And so it was a good time and a bad time. That's the thing for me. It was mixed. The good part was we made a really good record and did really good shows. The bad, as it was almost this Faustian bargain. You can have a good record, but your friend's gonna die, and I cannot divorce myself from that. Did I shake hands with some kind of evil thing? Did I make some kind of bargain? You know what I mean? Where you're at the crossroads and the devil says, well, what do you want? Great career or a long life? Well, I want the good career. Well, I'll just take your soul. And because Joe died, and then our band just took off. It was almost like that happened and then that happened.
Yeah, you can't digest all that.
It was and I'm not a spiritual person, so I don't, I'm not, it's not something, but it was so kind of awful, and at the same time, well, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
What is that? What it took? And it's a really weird space to be in when you're so overcome by grief that you'll believe almost anything. You look at the phone, man, he might just call. Grief makes you crazy, crazy, irrational. You're I am out of my mind. I just got to sit in this room because I can't go outside. I mean, I'm not in a good place. But the tour schedule was what it was. And there was so many people coming, man, this is my favorite album. You're thanks. Thanks a lot. But I can't say I miss those days. But I can say that things for me are way different now. I mean, it is what, it's that whole, it is what it is thing coming, at you.
Yeah.
It's fine. Things are good now.
Things are really good.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Let's see. Oh, what's happening here? Oh no! What's that? It's... Ladies and gentlemen.
Ow.
Oh, is it too loud?
You do that every time. I think you do it on purpose.
I think I do.
I'm pretty sure.
Do I do that on purpose?
Ow.
How are your feet, Heidi May? How are your feet? Feet.
Raw.
Feet.
Raw.
Raw feet are more than soul. So, ladies and gentlemen, that sound can only mean one thing. It is time yet again for Heidi's Headlines. You got one of those cards for me, Heidi? Oh, look, you do.
I sure do.
Okay, what side am I reading first? I want to get this right.
Side.
Okay, see? Heidi advises Henry not to step in the dog crap on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But instead of walking around it, he lay down next to it with 3 exclamation points.
Why would you do that?
Because you were there. I never would have done that if you weren't there.
Henry.
So let's see.
It was giant.
Yeah.
It was probably from some Saint Bernard or something.
Sure. Let's talk about this. I love
I'm just saying,
the conversations
it was
go to the
huge.
scatological.
Someone had ridden their bicycle through it because there was a tire mark going through it.
Why you have a memory for this kind of thing?
Because, Henry, the only reason I remember is because you decided to lay down and scream out, "Look!" And there were workers working right there, and you were laying down next to the dog crap while they're trying to work, screaming at me to turn around and look.
Yeah.
Now that's insanity.
The smell was
horrible.
It was really strong.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
It was. So I just don't understand. What was that? An ode to pink flamingos? What
No,
was that?
Heidi, it was just when I'm around you, I act out. I tried to be the obstreperous child who, like, I can't take you anywhere, Henry Rollins. I just love it. You immature me.
Me?
Yeah.
No.
You inspire me to do things like that. I would never do that around anyone.
I'm immature, but in a different way. I don't do stuff like that.
You bring it out of me. I can't think of a single person I would do that around besides you.
I have a picture of it. I won't post it. I also have video footage of it, just so you know. But anyway, don't lay down next to dog crap. Word of advice.
Henry Rollins.
No, please don't. Oh, and you know what?
What?
I'd like to thank Pat and Kim. They made a very nice thank you, Heidi and Henry. They put my name first. Card.
Oh,
they gave it to you while you were in Europe.
Yeah.
And it's just thanking us about the podcast. They like the podcast. So thank you, Pat and Kim.
All right.
I totally appreciate it. So does Henry.
Yes, of course I appreciate it. We have fantastic listeners. Oh, well, Heidi, you have anything else to say?
Thanks for listening.
Is that all there is, my friends? If that's all there is,
yay!
Then let's keep on podcasting. Let's break out the ginger beer and have ourselves a ball.
What's ginger beer?
The ginger beer is a non-alcoholic drink. It's sugar and ginger, and I think some molasses is in there. And there's the sweet kind, like Bundabergs of Australia, insanely popular. And then there's kinds like you mix in drinks that has like hardly any sugar and it's like really hot. And there's online there's forums about which kind of style of ginger beer you like better.
You're really going deep into this. So you know what?
Yeah. Stop it! I think I spilled my
Your
drink.
face is beet red.
Wow.
Yeah, that drink is going to fall off. Push that.
Yeah, look at that. Ow. Stop it.
I'm going to give classes on how to hawk.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, look, the
Yeah,
sound
you go like
effects
this. You
ran
go,
out.
and then you go,
No, stop it. You're a maniac.
Oh, look, we went into the next. Crickets.
And now
that's our audience.
we're going to walk away and leave you to the jungle. Welcome.
Thank you.
We should stop talking now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll stop talking. No talking.